Be at peace, for your healing is now. Be at peace. Be at peace, for your healing is now. What's up, Michelle Evans? Be at peace. Be at peace. How are you guys doing this morning? For your healing is now. What's up, Petey? Be at peace. Be at peace. For your healing is now. Oh, yeah, this song that I sung during the sound bath is still like there. So come on in the room, like, share, follow, and be at peace. Be at peace, for your healing is now. Be at peace. Be at peace. Why don't you be at peace? For your for your healing. Good morning. Is now. One more time, I want you to be at peace. Oh, be at peace. For your healing is now. Be at peace. Why don't you be at peace? For your healing is now. Oh, yes, it is. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are having. Thank you, Katina Brownlee. Thank you for being in this space. Those that are coming in and out of the room, I bid you blessings. I speak love, nothing but love onto you on this day. Welcome into this space where I've devoted and kind of put time, set aside time to say, you know what, I'm just going to go talk and I'm just going to go live. I'm just going to share. I'm going to be vulnerable. Like, I think the hardest thing that I'm learning about life is to be vulnerable. Like, to be so, okay, this is what it is. And let the chips fall where they may. And whatever happens, I trust that it's all going to be for my highest and greatest good. So my name is Titus Glenn, singer, songwriter, spiritual life coach. And I just came live to talk about my journey and just continue to share my journey because there are millions of people. Thank you, Marie, for the follow. There are millions of people out here in the world, and whoever I'm called, whoever I'm assigned to, I believe that you as an individual, let me speak to you, whoever, whatever your call is, whatever you're supposed to do, and there is a group, there's a sector of people that is that you are called to. Let me slow down because I'm excited that you are called to. And it's a matter of, I'm learning in this space of entrepreneurship, sometimes you got to say that thing over and over again. Sometimes you got to tell your story over and over again. Sometimes you got to be vulnerable over and over again because these algorithms, they don't, like, we don't know where we're going. We don't know who we're going to reach. We're just trusting that our story is going to meet, you're trusting that your story is going to meet the right person, that whoever needs to hear your story will hear your story. So if y'all could do me a favor in this space, if you could share the live, heart the space, because it helps If people like you, it's going to attract people like you that might need to hear this story, that might need to be in this space that we are having these conversations. And while you're here, I want to go ahead and invite you out May the 18th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm hosting an event called Unchurching, Healing Religious Trauma and Fostering Personal Development. And I'm having conversations with counselor friends of mine who are they're in the field of counseling, but they also have been church. They've also, some of them are over church, just like I know a lot of people that I've encountered are over the way that we have done church. And some people don't go to church, but they still want community. This is that. This is that space where we have conversation, where we talk about how do we heal, how do I heal, make it personal, how do I connect with God, how do I connect with Source, Creator, Universe, whatever you want to call it, because I believe we're in a climate to where people they need something different, and you get to be the difference, you get to be the change. So y'all, again, my name is Titus Glenn, singer, songwriter, sound healer, and spiritual life coach, and I'm here. So, just a little bit about me. I grew up Baptist. So that guide me over thy great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. What y'all know about that? Y'all know the rest of the words? Because most people do not know the words to that song. Do y'all know that song? Do y'all remember that song? Because what comes next? Because the leader would say, guide me over thy great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. Guide me. Okay, I won't sing all of it, but that's where I come from, right? That's where I come from. I came from that church where we was doing devotion when I got there. By the time I left, we were no longer doing devotion. We were now doing, thank you, Arlene. We were going from devotion, then we were doing praise and worship, right? Right. And so I grew up in that era where we were trying to figure out. You grew up Kojic? Okay, okay. Well, yeah, so Kojic, what was that? Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried Jesus? And then it would be that same thing. Jesus getting us ready for that great day. Jesus getting us ready for that great day. Who shall be able to stand? Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried? All that. Okay. Y'all, you get me caught up. But it's still there. It's still there. Come on. He's a wonder in my soul. He's a wonder. All right. Let me get out of that. But all that, right? All that lifting of hands and going in. All that. All the tearing. Come on. All the tearing. All that. That's what I grew up in, y'all. That's what I grew up in. And I went from there, right? Have you tried? Jesus getting us ready for that. Hallelujah. Everybody. Dun, 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 dun. All that, right? I grew up in there. I went from being Baptist, then went to Pentecostal, then Pentecostal, Apostolic. I was under leadership in college to where we believed in the fivefold ministry, believed in the teacher, the evangelist, the apostle, the preacher. What was the other one? Y'all know it. So the fivefold ministry, right? Right? I grew up in that. And I loved it. I was the kid that was ready to go to church, right? But when I was 13, I was also leading worship with the adults. I was the youngest I was the only child leading worship, singing with the adults, right? Rest in peace, Anthony Robinson at Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church, where he saw that there was potential. And so I was 13. Then there was like a 10-year gap, right? 13, and I think they were like 23 and up. And you talking about these ninjas with sing. Think of Kirk Carr singers at Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church, because that's how they were rocking, and I was just the little kid on the scene. And so um, I transitioned when I left uh, church, right? Not left church in the sense of like leaving church, but when I went to college and transitioned to college, I started at a Baptist church, right? So anybody else, any other denominations in here? We have Baptists, we have Church of God in Christ. Who else? What other denominations? Are there any Methodists in this space? Any Methodists? So put your affiliation in there. Let's make it interactive. The more you talk, the more you engage, the more TikTok know that we are in here enjoying each other's company. And thank you for all the shares and stuff on Facebook as well. So I went to thank you so much for sharing this live. I went to college and I started off in a Baptist church. Started off in a Baptist church, and when I went to the Baptist church, I was there for probably a good year, and I ended up encountering a minister and his wife who were starting a church, and they were apostolic, and so I went and I felt called to join that church, and from there, I was leading worship like every Sunday. I started a cappella. So my skill set in church has been, thank you for the follow. My skill set in church has been worship leading. That's what I know. That's what I'm skilled at. Alongside of not just singing the songs of the Lord, right? But also being a songwriter, right? So I have placements on Marvin Sapp, Leaning. If you ever heard that song, I wrote that song. Bobby Jones, if you ever heard a song, everybody come on, let's praise the Lord, right? I wrote that song, and then there was another song on there that I was blessed to be placed with, right? I'm just giving you a history so you know, and you can kind of know where all this is coming from and where I am on my journey, right? So then Maurice Griffin, Sunday Best, I co-wrote, Prove me I'm yours, the closer I come, the better I feel. So if you ever heard those songs, I penned those songs. The uh, Leaning, the Everybody Come On, Let's Praise the Lord. And then if you heard Montre Tisdale, In Your Presence I Find Joy. Miranda Curtis also sung it on David Walker's album. So yes, these are just my history. Like I grew up in this. Like I wrote songs to help and support that space. And so when I went to college and I began to be in the apostolic mode and learned about the fivefold ministry, speaking in tongues, prophesying, like these are the things that I grew up in, right? And then lo and behold, life started to happen. Life started to happen. Thank you for the share. Thank you again for the share, for the follow. Life started to freaking happen. I got married. I got married. I was married after dating my, listen, life, yes, absolutely. Life started to happen. And I got married 3 months after knowing my then wife, because I felt like God was leading me to marry her. And so in that we have four kids, four beautiful kids. My I got no ugly kids. My kids are absolutely gorgeous. They're well behaved, all that good stuff. Like I love being a father, right? But in that space, before we got uh, divorced and moved our separate ways, in that space and adulting, life just happened. And um, while I was married, we went from being apostolic to Hebrew. So we started looking at feast days and honoring feast days where we didn't go to church on Sunday. We would go to church on Saturday, and it was a thing. It was a thing. We didn't go to church on Sunday. We stopped celebrating Christmas. We started celebrating Hanukkah. And so that was my life. And then life began to happen again. Life began to happen again. Or well, I would begin to be cognizant of life happening. And about 10 years into my marriage, I ended up having an affair. I ended up having an affair. And I tell this often because I'm no longer ashamed of my affair. I remember when I first started talking about me having an affair, right? And somebody, uh, come on, thank you for chiming in. Somebody was like, you don't need to be talking about your affair. Like people are they're not going to receive you. And it began to confirm what I was experiencing in my awareness of what I feel like a lot of church has done for people. Like church in a broader, because there are some churches that don't do this, but in a broader way of looking at what a lot of it experienced, of what I feel a lot of people experience, they have experienced covering up bullshit, like for the sake of not not being seen, right? Oh, don't talk about that. Don't talk about you having an affair. Don't do that. Like because there is this image that we've been told, or that I was told, that you got to uphold. Like worship leading for 20 years. And when I first had my affair, I didn't know I was in an affair. I didn't know I was in an affair until I was in an affair. And whether you believe that or not, whether you thank you for the gifts, thank you for the gifts. Like whether you believe it or not, I didn't know I was in an affair until I was in an affair. And why do I say I didn't know? Because I was blinded by what was happening that got me there. Right? And this is not me condoning an affair, but this is how I began to be awakened that something was going on. So I had an affair. My then wife forgave me, and we began to, I guess, quote unquote, reconcile. Um, and I began to do all the things to make up for it. And because before the affair, I would say I was unstable in the sense of I was the feminine in the house for sure. I was the feminine energy in the house, cooking, cleaning, doing all those things. And then I started kind of focusing in on my career. I got my certificate to teach. I started working. One summer I worked 2 jobs to get us the house, to do all these things, to be the man of my household, right? To be the man of my household, to support my children, all these things, right? And so in that, uh, after we got the house and I'm doing these things to be the man of my household, um, legit being a support to my wife, legit being there um, in the way that I felt like she needed to for me to be there. And then lo and behold, I'm in another affair. Like what the freak is going on? And come my second affair, I began to put myself in counseling because I was like, something's going on. This is not Titus. Like I'm like, what is this? Like what is this? Like okay, that's the song that came. I started to be in another affair because I was like, what is this? Like I'm in this space of I'm not supposed to be cheating. I'm not supposed to be cheating. I'm Titus Glenn. I'm a singer. I'm a worship leader. I'm the guy that's shifting atmospheres. I don't say that arrogantly. I say that because I know my skill set. I know what I've been called and gifted to do. So here I am in another affair, right? And like, what is going on? So I'm going to counseling. I'm putting myself in counseling. I am starting to read books. I'm starting to uh, follow other relationship coaches that are talking about why do people have an affair, right? And I want to stop right here. Like people that are genuine in how they show up, they legit. This is why I say. Let me finish my thought. People that are having an affair, is more than meets the eye. It's more than meets the eye. So when you start condemning somebody for having an affair, I would encourage people to start looking at the full picture. Because what I have found, especially in church, is that we start condemning the person that's having the affair, but we don't examine what actually contributed to the affair. And this is not condoning the affair, but this is to say that there are multiple factors that goes into somebody having an affair. Absolutely. Emotional trauma, it could be various things. Emotional trauma, it could be somebody's needs not getting met. It could be out of fear. It could be, what I learned in that space is that when I started, especially the second time I was having it, I started to realize that I was not happy in my marriage. Crazy as it may seem, take it for what you will. That was my wake up call to be like, this, like, what's going on? Like, I'm not happy here. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be married, because I believe in relationships. But the way that my marriage was set up, I began to question. Because the reason, thank you so much for the share, Taz. The way that I got married, I was married after 3 months. And my 3 months, basically, it was like my leaders at the time, I asked him, I said, I'm having this dream. I had this dream about the mother of my children before we got married. And I talked to her about the dream, and it exposed me some areas in my life I was walking through, right? It exposed me in a way that it basically sharing her that I had been with a man before, right? And I was like, wait, God, why would you show this to this woman? Like, and so it was kind of like, why would you show them this most intimate part of me to this woman here? And during my, ooh, that was like, I just released that. And this is like growth because I'm saying this out loud. I began to talk to her about my attraction to men. And then I began to question because it was almost as if she had had the dream and she had been aware. And I began to ask God at the time, like, why would you share this intimate thing about me to this individual? And then I took that to my leaders at the time, and it was like, well, why do you think? And so at that time, it was like, well, because she's my wife. And then there was no arguing. There was no, sitting with it. It was like, well, God, if you said it, bet we finna be married. And so we end up getting married. We end up getting married after 3 months of dating, right? After 3 months of dating, end up getting married, and we were married for 14 years. 14 years married. Thank you so much for the hearts. I appreciate that. We were married for 14 years, and through my affair, I began to realize that I wasn't happy, not because of the attraction, because my wife is beautiful. Like, the mother of my children is absolutely beautiful. Um, but it was things in our marriage that I began to really question, like, well, what if I got it wrong? What if the interpretation was wrong? Because at this point, it was kind of like, well, God, you said, well, God, you said. Then it was like, wait, what if God didn't say? What if God didn't say? What if the way that I interpreted things was not correct? And that was when it was like, throw it all away. Because I didn't have a premise anymore to stand on. I didn't have this conversation that I told myself, well, God, you said. Well, God, you said. And then it was like, well, wait, what if that's not valid? And so I began to go within my mind to be like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. And then I came to the conclusion that I could not keep something. I could not hold on to a marriage that was not built on proper foundation. I couldn't hold on to a relationship that wasn't built on an adequate foundation. I believe I believe I still would have been married, same gender loving or not, if my relationship was built on something that was sustainable. But when you experience life and you begin to navigate and learn, God would allow things to happen. But I think at this evolution, I think it's all about our growth. It's all about what your call is. And I believe if it had not been for that experience, I wouldn't be able to walk into the rooms that I walk in now. I wouldn't be able to own who I am now. So I begin to, in this space of life, I'm beginning and learning how to bless all of it. Okay, so I'm just kind of bringing y'all in. Tap that screen if you're following me. Tap that screen if you're here, if you're listening, if you understand, if it resonates. And y'all forgive me. I talk really, really fast, and I understand that. So thank y'all for the hearts. Thank you. So the second time, the affair, and now realizing like something's going on. I'm realizing I'm not happy. And then I started to investigate like what's going on. And then going to counseling, the counseling when we was trying to keep our marriage, I went to a therapist, and the therapist was like, "Well, have you considered you might be same gender loving?" And I was like, I left that counseling session like, "You lying to me?" Like seriously, I left and drove 45 minutes to talk to my mentor, and I was like, because I felt like, what if it's true? What if it's true? And we begin to have conversation in my counseling sessions about the things that I've been told, the things that was said, like looking at who is God, what is God, looking at other religions that have same gender loving people. Um, and one big thing was there was a book I was given. The book I was given was about this Jewish guy who was same gender loving, but he was hiding out, right? And I began to question. I feel like this is how sheltered I was because I began to question like, wait, he's Jew, he not supposed to be same gender loving. Like they God's people. And then these little things started to awaken me to this idea that not everything that I was told was accurate. To just move it back a little bit, there had already been a seed planted while I was in that phase of studying Hebrew, because one of the rabbis' teaching was about hell, and one of the things that he said about hell was that the Jewish people don't even teach hell. They don't even teach hell because it's not a thing that they do. They teach living life. And so here I am having this information, and then now I'm questioning, wait, if Jesus was a Jew and they don't even teach hell, his teaching is not to teach hell, then why am I over here in this religious sector, in this Baptist, in this Pentecostal, in this way of being taught hell, condemnation, but this is not what Jesus taught. So now I'm all these things is starting to connect for me. All of these things are starting to connect for me because I'm like, um, something is something is not quite there. And I began to sit with all of it. And I ended up going through with the divorce, and during that first week, I believe, of me being in this apartment that I'm still in, um, I went on a prayer call with Iyanla Van Zant. Those that like her, man, she's the one that like it's a real thing. Um, and she began to be on that call and begin to talk about prayer. And because at this space, I felt like I was disconnected. I was like, "Oh God, what are you doing? Like, this is not supposed to be my life." And I was questioning God, like, "Is there a God? Is Jesus? Are you real?" Like all these questions. And I began to sit on this prayer call, and the one thing that she kept on saying was, "By any name you call God." And I was like, "Wait, okay, I don't get it, but I feel like I'm supposed to be here." And in that space of experiencing that prayer call, that week, I experienced God in a way that I had experienced God before, but now it was like, whoa, I feel the presence of God now again. I feel the presence of God now again. And that started my evolution of looking at religion and what religion has done, even in the confines of being Kojic and being Baptist and being Hebrew, looking at all of it, and realizing that it's legit the same, and having to become confident in what I believe, right? What I believe, with not caring about what other people think about what I believe, right? And it put me in this space of really leaning in a way that I began to question God, what am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And I began to do, thank you, Jan. I began to do more digging and more looking into the Bible and more reading books outside the Bible, right? So reading more books outside the Bible because it was this knowing first in Hebrew that not everything that we've been given in the King James Version is accurate and has been interpreted and reinterpreted. And so I began to have to sit with all these things, which is how I'm here today in a nutshell. I know I said a lot, but in this space of deconstructing, I've had to deconstruct, like, who is God to me? Who is Jesus to me? What is the Holy Spirit? Who is the Holy Spirit? Like, what works for me? What don't work for me? And be okay with all of it. Be okay with all of it. And what I'm finding out now on this side of healing, thank you for the share again. And for those that are on this healing journey, is your disconnection from God is really not a disconnection from God, but the disconnect is from yourself. Why is it from yourself? Because you don't know who you are. And you can just breathe on that. Like, who are you? What are you supposed to be doing? Like, you don't know who you are. So you feel discombobulated, you feel disconnected because you think we've been taught this, that we're supposed to worship this deity outside of us, right? And so we look for things outside of us. But when actuality and what is being discovered and unfolded is that the Bible in itself is about you going within and you journeying within and you looking for God within. Because one thing I know about God is that none of us know how God looks per se, right? None of us know how God looks per se. And when we hear God's voice, we all have different way of hearing God's voice, right? So all of it is reflecting inward. Like, how do you hear God? How do you see God? And one of the ways that it's helped me is using scripture, still using this ancient text, because I believe it's hands down one of the things that is helping me facilitate where I am now, is going deeper beyond this literal sense, of what the what we've been told, and start doing investigation within the words, right? Not just Abraham went up, but what does Abraham mean? What does the hill of the mountain, what does that mean? What does Mount Moriah mean? What is the deeper meaning of these things? And what I'm researching and finding out is it's going on a journey within, right? Did you know that when Abraham went up, right, on Mount Moriah, right, that Mount Moriah, I'm going to look it up right here. Mount Moriah means metaphysically, I'm going to go back to this because I was talking about this not too long ago. Abraham, we know Abraham as a man of faith, but it's also their protection or their shield and stuff like that. Isaac means joy, right? And then Mount Moriah means uh, bitterness of Jehovah, right? So when you know these things, when you read the text now, when I read the text now, let me make it personal. When I read the text now, I look at Abraham as this place of protection and shield that's coming in with joy, but it's being called to this place of bitterness, this place of solidation, removing all these things, right? Right? And now I know that when we're being called and called higher to the space of consciousness, it takes a solidation. It takes removing ourselves from things, but it's a bitterness that comes with that because there's a struggle with changing your mind. There's a struggle when it comes to changing your way of thinking. There's a struggle when it comes to that, right? So when we look at, I offer, you know, to take a look at these words, not in a literal sense, but go beyond and look into it metaphysically. Go beyond the physical, right? Because there is a deeper meaning. There is a deeper meaning. Um, I was looking for this Mount Moriah. I'm just looking up to make sure we Moriah, and I'm going to Truth Unity, and it said um, a place in the desert to which the Israelites came after having crossed the Red Sea. Right. It says the definition: the bitterness, the trouble, the sickness, the misery that those who pollute the waters of life with impure. So again, and I went to a mere uh, Abamir publication as well, who talks about the bitterness of Jehovah. But it's legit this place of bitterness or error thinking, like coming up to this space, right? When you're called to something, when you're walking in faith, right? When all the people don't believe you where you're going, you have to ascend to this place in your mind, in your consciousness, right? Which can be bittersweet sometimes because you're walking into something new, but you're having to release the old. All right. And then this is what I love when it talks about metaphysically, when it talks about lamb or ram in the bush, it was God giving a new way of thinking. It was a change in perception. Right. So having these awarenesses in this space that I'm growing is life changing for me because it takes the dogma, right? It takes the dogma out of discovering where what it is that you need to look at and not putting the judgments on other people. So I said a lot today, but are y'all getting what I'm saying? And thank y'all for being here. But this is the space that I am creating and having these discussions because I believe people are, a lot of people are in the space of deconstructing and wanting to figure out how to connect with God. And you connect with God by finding yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, you can click on the link in my bio, 30-minute free consult, where we talk and we navigate that discussion on how I could come alongside of you if you're looking for a spiritual life coach to connect with yourself. Connect with yourself. I also want to at this time invite you, May 18th, I'm having a unchurching event called Healing Religious Trauma and Fostering Personal Development. And I'm having counsel friends on, and we're just going to have a discussion. Going to really have a discussion. Do y'all have any questions for me in this space? Y'all have any questions for me while I'm here? Anything you want to know? Anything I can answer? When did I cheat? You want to know when? Is that the question? It was. It was. Yes. I said that out loud. Yes. But yes, it was. And I no longer have, I released the shame of it because it took me a while to figure out like what was going on. Like, why was I doing what I was doing? But I also believe that because it was comfortable and that was an easy go to, then yeah. Any other questions? I'm an open book. I have no shame. So he could be bisexual. He could be bisexual. And there are also people that are just attracted to energy as well. I'm finding my stance is I don't know if I would get married to another woman. Um, Not because I don't think women are beautiful, but I think energetically I fit in a different space, like more masculine. Now I do know, and I know I say this with um, a happiness about it because of the levels of my femininity. I believe that I could teach a lot of women on how to build their man up to get what they want. Because I believe the femininity of women is there in a lot of women, but they don't know how to access it. And in not accessing it, they legit don't know how to be in their relationships. And a woman can really get anything that you want from a man if you know how to work your femininity. Absolutely. Be honest. And this is why I say, going into my marriage was not about me. I guess in a way, I never thought I was a same gender loving black man. I did not. I didn't think about that because I thought it was sin. So a lot of times I'm getting asked the question like, "Did you know?" Like during the time, even though I have been in a relationship or been involved with a man, I always equated to it as sin. It wasn't an ownership. It was like, God forgive me, I'm back at the altar, right? And then on top of that, the mother of my children knew like my background. So it's not like I'm not that guy that is like other men who get into marriages and are still in marriages as what they call them beards. Like you're in a relationship to cover up because you're trying to keep your title. And there are men and women who are married and on pulpits publicly, but behind closed doors, they're in two separate rooms. And I just don't want to live like that. Like frauds. I don't want to be fraud. Listen, that part. Like people legit will shame people for what they do behind closed doors. And I don't want to be that individual. I don't want to be that individual. And so I'm finding now in this space of being authentic, I am being able to have these conversations because 3 years ago, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations because pride was there, shame was there, like all these things that were there because I was ashamed of these feelings. I was ashamed, right? And there was a level of shame that I've been taught because I've been taught you go to hell. I've been taught you're not going to be loved by God, not just in being the same gender of a loving black man, but also for getting a divorce, right? Like I'm gonna say this often. Like I was doing a live, just saying like, well, maybe God used my divorce, or maybe God allowed it, and somebody who I know is very religious, like chimed in was like, God wouldn't do that. That's not God. But like, how do you know? How do you know what God would not allow in somebody else's story? How do you know that? So for me, I'm starting to share because this is um listen, thank you for sharing, Taz. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think that's the thing. Like people don't know, right? They don't know what they don't know. which is okay not to know. The harm comes when you start demonizing or frowning upon somebody else's experience. No matter how many divorces they had, no matter what they're doing now, like that is their journey. That is their story, right? Those are lessons that they have been called to learn. And one of the things that I love that I'm learning on my journey in my spiritual class is the saying that we say often, that all it is ACIM, ACIM. I'm gonna have to find that number. That all things are lessons that God would have us to learn. However you define God, source, creator, whatever you call it, like wherever you are is a lesson. Wherever you are is a lesson. But what we get in when we get in trouble, or we disconnect from people when we start saying that that's not God. How do you know? That part. Listen, but here's the listen. I'm just saying, religion in itself, how we handle religion, because I believe there's benefits of community. But when you use theology, when you use words, when you use your platform to speak ill or to condemn, you're doing major damage. You're doing major damage here, which is where the miracle is. Your mind. And learning how to navigate that, it takes work. There is what we call, it's what people are coining. I think it's been coined since 1980s. Religious trauma. So many people are experiencing religious trauma because they've been told the ill will is going to come on them. They've been told that they're cursed. They've been told all these things, right? And so some people won't even go to parties. Some people won't date no more. Some people won't have relations with other people, right? Because they're so afraid of, ooh, I, can I be transparent? OMG. Let me know if I can be really transparent. Let me know if that's okay with you. I know I've said a lot already. So I was talking to a family member, and they're so adamant about not having relations, right? They're so adamant about it because, well, that's sin. That's sin. Like, God wouldn't want that. I told them, how you know? Well, the Bible says, I said, well, are you sure? Because when you start even looking at fornication and breaking it down, what it really is, right? It is pretty much promiscuity in a negative way. Like giving your body for the sake of wanting to feel love, or putting it out there because you're trying to fill a void. That is promiscuity. But when you're giving your body because two people agree that it's okay and you are whole, because in the Bible, there were no marriages. They just did what they did, and that was it. Right? But when you know somebody in that relationship way, you do become married to them because there's an exchange of spirit. But all this dogma around relations with people, keeping people in fear, right? And so what you resist, you persist. So this is why you keep on having a relationship with people, or you feel like you can't control your flesh, because you haven't really navigated, like, why do I want to be with this person? Why do I want to give my body to this person? What am I getting from this person? Like, what is happening, right? And I have found that the more that I become aware of who I am, the less likely I want to give myself to random people. For sure. There were definitely ceremonies, but most of the time them ceremonies came after they had the relations. But thank you for chiming in. I appreciate it. Is it Jude? But I think this is This is great conversation. Great conversation. So it's okay, cool. Thank you for chiming in. But I think these are conversations that I believe people are having. Like I feel like HIV is so high in the context of gay black men. This is my thought pattern. I believe HIV is so high is because we've taught shame on same gender loving relationships. And in teaching shame, we have created a vibration or spirit or whatever you want to call it for people that struggle. So because they can't be free or talk about it, they hush it down in such a way that it innately comes out. That's my belief, right? Because when I look at the gay community, I see people who sleep with so many people. I see people that don't know how to commit. I see people who sleep with a lot of randoms, right? But I also see that on the side of heterosexual people who have not been able to explore. So they have several people that they get down with, right? They have a hard time committing. They're getting pregnant more often. Like there's so many in my opinion, because we have not had these conversations and there's a lot of shame around just talking about these type of relationships that people start exchanging energies in that way because they have not been giving the the floor to talk. And as you talk, you can heal these areas in your life. You can as you talk, you can explore and navigate what's going on so that you don't attract these people, places and things that will push you or open up these gates to where you are having these relationships with people in an unhealthy way. Am I making sense? So, and I know this is one of the conversations I'm going to end up having with my children because they're getting older. Like, I don't want to shame them because of their thoughts. Like, it's part of our human nature to want to be around people and to want to have a relationship with people. But having the conscious choice, having a being in a healed state that I'm not doing this to feel loved because I already love myself, right? So now place a higher value on who I give that essence of me to versus I need a cuddle, I need somebody to touch me, right? Doing it from a place of what they call low vibration. What would I tell them? Great question. Um, for me, I believe I'm going to tell them that love who you love. But first, make sure you love yourself. And then this might be a conversation where I talk to them and we never look at the science of how we are all made, right? Because one of the things I read this book called I'm gay, I'm black, I'm gay, and I'm a minister. And one of the profound things that he said is that when we were all conceived, when we were all conceived, we were at the mercy of biology. Legit. And I totally believe that. So when we start looking at how much estrogen we have, when we start looking at how much testosterone we have, we don't know. And in the not knowing, right, when we get here, some men have more feminine qualities than than women. But that don't make them gay. It could just mean that that's how they respond, right? So when we're looking at the bigger picture, right? How do you navigate who is who, right? Because there are some DL men that you will never know. You will never know unless you peek into their phone and you figure out what they're watching. True, there's some women that are married to men that behind closed doors, they doing they FaceTiming, doing all kinds of stuff because they haven't had these conversations. But I digress. I hope that answered your question. For me, it will be studying the science, looking at science, looking at creation. And then also, you know, absolutely, absolutely. And also, for me, using the Bible as a tool is still important. So I would probably end up watching this movie called 1946 with him, which talks about how homosexuality was put in the Bible, but that's not they were asked not to put that in the Bible because the word that they use as homosexuality was not homosexuality. It was more so about pedophilia. It had nothing to do with men loving another man. It had to do with men taking advantage of boys or forcing yourself upon boys. Have you ever thought about why they don't talk about lesbianism in the Bible? Like it's all about men because it had nothing to do with that. But I digress. So thank y'all for tuning in on this space again. May 18th. I would love to see you there. Click on the link in my bio. Click on the link in my. I think you want to click on the link in my bio. And we're gonna have these conversations. We're just gonna really. It's a conversation about healing religious trauma and fostering personal development, and opening up a way that we can start having a conversation in a way of community, in a way of healing, in a way of I'm gonna be me, you be you, and we just love each other just as we are. So I hope this conversation helps somebody. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the follows. Thank you in advance for just your continued support in this space. And if do y'all have any more questions before I hop out? Any more questions?